Hello and welcome to Unstoppable. I'm your host, Kerwin, and today I talk with Monica Meldrum, who is the co-founder of the healthy children's lunchbox snack company, Whole Kids. Now, I've got a big interest in this because I've been feeding my son, Noah. He eats these products as a part of his daily lunchbox routine. What's interesting when you look at this, Monica developed this company because she was actually frustrated by the lack of nutritious lunchbox snacks for kids. And she actually left her corporate job at the height of her career and risked her entire home to start the business. Now, in this episode, we find out how she landed in a boardroom, pitching to 16 Qantas executives and being up against a major food retailer as a startup, and how she won that contract that has led to the successful business she has today. If you've ever put everything on the line for your business, this episode is for you. Check it out. Monica Meldrum. Listen up. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome to Unstoppable. We have Monica Meldrum. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks so much, Kerwin.
Now, my first question, how's Molly? Do you get that a lot?
I get that a lot, and there's absolutely no relation. Yeah.
So bad. Now, listen, you have got quite an incredible story. I hadn't actually realised until you got here that I'm actually a client of yours.
I know, thank you.
And I bet you probably have that all the time.
Yeah, we do.
So for perhaps people who are living under a rock who don't know what you do because they don't buy healthy treats for their, or healthy foods for their kids, who are you? What do you do? What's the short version?
We are Whole Kids.
Whole Kids.
Our purpose is to create healthy, happy lives for children. So we manufacture Australia's largest range of certified organic, allergen-free, additive-free snacks for children.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. Whole Kids. It sounds better than half kids because,
Yes.
you know, it'd almost be a little bit like traumatic if, you know, if we're looking at buying a half a child. So you've actually, your story is actually quite interesting. So you actually built this out of a requirement to create healthy snacks for your kids. Is that right?
No, it was pre-kids.
Pre-kids?
Yes, it was.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So before we actually get into it, like, why don't we go back to the very beginning? Like, what's your story? Like, where do you hail from?
So I'm one of 6 kids.
Holy
I'm
smokes.
the middle girl.
Yeah.
So, you know, my dad he has his own accounting practice, so he was very entrepreneurial. I basically went to school, lived with a big family. I had this moment where I said to my dad one day when I was 13, he'd educated me. I was his last hope for his accounting practice.
Last hope. I like
he
that.
said to me, so we were talking about careers, what do you think you want to do with your life? And I said, actually, I think I want to become a social worker. And
Wow.
to which he responded, you'll never make any money doing that. You know, so I did the responsible
Very
thing.
entrepreneurial response.
Yes, I went to uni, but I did study sociology with a business degree. But as part of that degree, I had to choose a language. Paul Keating had a really big push into Asia, and I'd heard Indonesian was pretty easy, so I chose that.
Holy smokes.
But I became really good at it. And
Tagalog, right? Is that how I say it? Jeez, I got it wrong, didn't I?
It's so wrong.
Oh, God. So you speak Indonesian.
What was it you were saying?
So how do you say it again?
Terima kasih is thank you.
Oh, no, terima kasih. But how do you, the language itself, it's called?
Bahasa.
Bahasa. Oh, okay, right.
Yeah,
Bahasa.
so I speak Bahasa.
Yeah, right.
And
I've been to Bali. I can say terima kasih. Yeah, that's right. I did it again.
Yeah. So I ended up getting a couple of scholarships to go over there.
Wow.
I ended up singing with an Indonesian reggae band.
You're kidding. How old are you when this went down?
So I was in my late teens, so
Yeah, right.
early 20s. Yeah.
Partying in the Philippines in a reggae band.
Yeah, that's
right. How unorthodox.
But I did end up becoming a translator-interpreter, and I had the opportunity with the Department of Foreign Affairs to travel to Indonesia and take a team of 16 Australians. So I led them over there to a remote village to deliver aid to children living in poverty. And
Wow.
yeah, and you know, when I got there, we had an agricultural scientist, a lawyer, a doctor. We had a look at the rice fields, at the irrigation systems, at the schools, you know, all of those things. But when it came down to it, I lived with a family over there, a family with 10 children, 2 rooms,
Wow.
little concrete slab
That's
for
not too far
flooring.
from your origins.
No,
Yeah.
it was pretty used to it. You know, thatched roofing,
Yeah.
bamboo walls. These kids had nothing, and we were just all so taken by the children. And at the end of the day, we thought, you know, we deliberated what could we do that was in keeping
You're
with
19 at this point, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
What could we do that was in keeping with the culture, the community? And we decided the best thing we could do was create a playground because these kids, it was monsoon, and so they would play in the drains. So it was, you know, these drains were 1 metre wide by 1 metre deep, and kids with siblings as young as 2 on their backs kind of being washed downstream. And 2 two things really struck me about this place. It was, the first was it was the happiest place in the world.
Yeah.
These kids, there was just so much joy, there was so much resilience, and secondly, that it was so unhygienic. And so we spent 3 months and we worked with the locals. We sourced tyres from clapped out cars in Meldrum, and we sourced wood from the local plantation, and we came together and we built this space. And
wow.
It was the most incredible experience. Yeah.
Was that a significant experience as a part of your life to see that level of poverty?
Totally. Yep. Yeah.
Do you think it changed you in some way?
It changed me. It made me question everything. It made me question, and more so when I got back to Australia, because I just realised we had so much, and kids here were just so unhappy. There's mental illness. Obesity skyrocketing. 1 in 4 children has an allergy, and it's like, what is going on? So I think that planted the seed.
Because I did some work in a Thai orphanage almost at the very beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, and it was almost like a gestalt, because very similar to your experience, there were these 30 kids living beside in a home beside the jail in Phuket, because their parents were in jail or their parents had been killed. And so these kids were living there, but I've never met 30 happier children in my entire life. They had nothing, dirt poor, but they didn't know what they didn't have, and they only knew what they did have, which was each other.
That's right.
And it was so incredible. And I remember at that point, it affected my view of the world. It affected my view of circumstances, and it almost like gave me permission on some level to feel a high level of gratitude for what I had.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so what happened next? You built a playground?
Yeah, did that, came back to Australia, again, did the sensible thing. I actually, in Indonesia, I ended up working with Boral, and I did some market research with them. I started a business over there. And so they were one of my clients, and with Ready Mix, and then came back to Australia with them. I headed up their export department, and they then transferred me into their strategy team up in Sydney, put me through an MBA, so I did that. But then the dot-com boom happened, and it was like, oh, it's too exciting, manufacturing, it's all a bit too boring. So I moved over to Cable and Wireless Optus, and there, and there I worked with a couple of the directors there, and I did a Master of Commercial Law. But I was always in the corporate world. I just wanted to be doing something different, and I just found that within every role I had, it was such a little kind of specific role, and I just was kind of thinking bigger and wanted to do more. And I kept coming back to these kids. At the same time, my brothers and sisters were all having kids. I have 19 nephews and nieces between me and my husband. So,
you guys are breeders, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. And one of them had severe allergies, and I started sensing the frustration that my brothers and sisters were having finding just healthy options.
No.
And so I started having a good look at the industry, and I could see that these big food companies were just over-processing foods. I had a real interest in health and nutrition at that stage. I became while I was in corporate, I was all a bit bored, so I did a Les Mills kind of body attack, body pump training course. So I was teaching classes as well.
Yeah, right.
Became really interested in health and nutrition. And I could see that these food companies are misleading parents. They were using all sorts of tactics to hook kids. There was this discussion around share of stomach and capturing the market from cradle to grave, and it was just so wrong.
It's frightening, isn't it?
Yeah. So I had a chat to a dietitian at the Royal Children's, and just to find out what some of the issues were around kids' health and nutrition. And I guess getting back to Indonesia, I always had this thought, what if I could create a business that not only contributed directly to kids' health, but through the proceeds was able to fund health and environmental projects globally. And that's something, that is the foundation for, I'm not from the food industry, for why we started the business. So having spoken with these dietitians, having met with some organic growers who shared their stories of many of their family members who died of cancer causes related to increased exposure to pesticides.
Yeah, right.
It really bothered me, and I just thought, I can't turn my back here. I need to do something about this. So
this was becoming conscious in your 20s?
Yes.
Late 20s?
So this was probably 2005, but it was this theme that was kind of running through, just this restlessness to kind of do more.
Yeah, right.
And so
at this point, was there any entrepreneurial inkling behind it? Or is it just a pervasive consciousness of something has to change?
There was. So having spoken with the growers and having done some research, actually, so my husband and I went to the States and we had a look at what was going on in the market. Organic foods.
Is this once you decided you were going to do this?
Yeah, once we decided.
Do you mind if I look at that period? Like, at
sure.
what point did you decide there's actually the potential here for a business?
Yep.
Let's actually consider seriously doing something about this.
Yeah. So we were both pretty unhappy in our corporate roles, but we spent probably 3 years really researching the market, and we went to the States and we had a good look at what was going on. Having spoken with organic growers, I could see what product was readily available because there were still supply issues within the Australian market, and what we could potentially produce, and came up with a range. And I think at that point we kind of went, all right.
And when was this? What year was this?
So this was 2005.
Right. So this is still when the organics industry in Australia was still quite immature.
Yeah,
it's still very immature.
Yeah, completely.
But, yeah.
But we'd seen what was going on overseas. And, you know, in the States, this possibility that organics would possibly, you know, the Australian market was 5 years behind the rest of the world. So the market would move at some point. And with all these health issues going on, there had to be change. So we created a range, and then James emailed me one day and said, hey, there's this organic expo happening, the inaugural one in Sydney. Let's go. And I'm like, all right. So we decided we'd do it really well. So we didn't have any product. We had manufacturing relationships set up.
Yeah.
We had developed, you know, prototypes, but we got a 6x3 stand, and we treated it purely as a marketing exercise to test the market and go, all right, this is our stake in the ground. If the response is good, we go. If the response is, you know,
I love it.
average, we're just going to
test the market.
Yeah. So we
But
could
you had no
confidently.
product. So how did you test?
So we had product samples and we had mock-ups. So we had these little mock-ups that were attached to the stand, and people would come and try and pick them up, and we're like, no, don't touch the
It's not
mock-ups.
real.
It's not real. But what we found was parents that we chatted to were saying there's nothing like this, and kids were interacting with our brand because we wanted this to be fun. We've essentially got two markets. A child has to like the product. It's got to taste good. But it also needs for mum to meet all of the, you know, health criteria. So, and then we had stores come to us, so smaller stores like the girls Tammy and Jodie from About Life placing orders. So we had 60 orders, we had no product, but we knew there was a market. So,
and that's really smart, because most people at that point will go, well, you know, they might be paralysed by the procrastination of, well, we could launch it, well, what if, but you literally went and go, well, let's invest a bit of money.
Yep.
Let's actually see what the market says. The market says we'll take 60 boxes, please.
Yep.
And then what do you do from there?
Let's do it. So quit our jobs, went into our first manufacturing run and went for it.
Now, is this when you took the deposit that you had saved?
Yes, we put everything in.
Yeah, so talk to us a little bit about that. Because some people don't back so some people back themselves to a point, but they don't back themselves all the way, and they don't go all in.
I think for me, everyone said we were stupid. I was at the height of my career. I was on like the biggest wicket in terms of salary, package. I was travelling a lot. I was away from home. But I was like, well, I can always go back. You know, if I don't give this a go, I wasn't fulfilled.
There we go.
And I just thought, if I don't give this a go, I will always wonder. I will never know. So I need to put everything in, and just, if it doesn't work. And so
you guys had saved a deposit for a house, and rather than spending it on the house, you put it into your first manufacturing run.
In perishable goods.
Wow.
Sitting in a warehouse.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there any trepidation? Was there any nerves? Was there any hesitation? It was just like, no, total conviction.
It was total conviction. It was just like, if I don't give this a go, really.
What about hubby? Was he just as convinced?
I'm not sure that he was.
There we go.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So that's good. So you had to deal with that in the relationship?
Yes, we did.
How did you navigate that? Like, because obviously, and this is very, very, I see this a lot, where you typically have one person will be the entrepreneurial driver, and you've got the other one who's almost like they're either the balancer or the anchor. Like they're either trying to balance and keep the equation, you know, even, or they're like, whoa, slow down. But have you thought about this? What was the relationship with your husband?
So James, he's very strategic. He's very creative. He will step through things in a strategic way, whereas I'm just like, go, implement, you know, let's get it going. So I think in that way, you know, people often ask, how do you work with your husband? But I think we have really clear roles within the business, and our approach just works.
And it's still working today?
It is.
So, and I guess this would be a great question for people who do work in, with their partner. They're working with their significant other. How do you make that work?
So we had to. Our first employee, we had to. I noticed we were having a bit of a disagreement one day, and it's like, we've got to sort this out, And there was this moment where we went out to dinner too, and I was like, right, we're not allowed to talk about work, we're not allowed to talk. At this stage, I had my first child in 2009, Chloe. Not allowed to talk about the kids, and we kind of sat there and looked at each other, and I'm like, right, this is not good. So what we did was we set management meetings. So every week we sit down, we talk through what needs to happen, and we go off and we run our separate areas of the business. And I think there's mutual respect there for what we bring to the business.
I think that's the key word, isn't it? Mutual respect.
Yeah.
You've got to have a level of respect, because once respect leaves, resentment comes in.
That's right.
And then it's a race to the bottom, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so 2005, you've taken the deposit, you've gone all in. What did the market just immediately uplift and was like, oh, happy days all the way through, or did you have your fair share of challenges?
No, we had our first taste of the power of the food industry. So
because they must have seen you and gone, hang on a second, these guys might be a mosquito now, but they could end up being a real issue later.
So we started to get a lot of PR, and I was quoted in the Sydney Morning Herald citing the link between sulphur dioxide in conventional dried fruits and asthmatic reactions in children, which is all fact.
Yep.
No sooner had the newspaper been published, 8 a.m. that morning, managing director of one of Australia's largest fruit growers rings and threatens legal action. He was really, really pissed off.
Wow.
He's like, I'm going to take this to the ACCC. You need to retract this. And, we spoke with a journalist, and he was like, whenever an article like this is published, these food businesses, they come out like sledgehammers. So my first reaction was like, oh my God, what have I done? It was this one of such great fear. But then I realised if this guy could see down the end of the phone line into our little 2-bedroom rented house with boxes all around us, he probably wouldn't have made the call.
Yeah.
But at that point, I realised Whole Kids could stand for honesty and transparency, and we really could create change, and we could shake it up. So that just gave me the drive to go, all right, let's take it on.
So you didn't actually pull back, you actually drove forward.
No, drove forward. So I approached Qantas. Because one of the biggest issues, again, chocolate on children's meal trays. And so there was a tender that was happening that I was invited to go to, and I was asked to bring up 16 sets of samples, and I got on the plane, and the meeting invite was for 2 people, so I'm like, right, I'll go in, I'll catch up with them. Sat there thinking about how the whole thing would play out, because we were up against one of the biggest FMCG companies in the world, a confectionery brand, which I won't name.
Yep. For people who don't know, FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods.
That's right.
Yep.
So I had this sudden thought, maybe there will be 16 people in the room. And so kind of got in my hire car, went to Officeworks, photocopied 14 other presentations, got everything together, and got there just in time to catch my breath, where I was ushered into a boardroom. Sure enough, 16 smartly dressed executives, head of special meals, catering, international, domestic, all of them were there. So it was a major, major thing. But I think I was just so excited to be there. And they said to me, Monica, you've got 45 minutes, the floor's yours. You need to convince us why we should put Whole Kids on board. And by the way, you're up against one of the major brands in the world.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So
game on.
Yeah. So I started talking to them about my experience in Indonesia, my experience with my nephews and nieces, how food companies, what they were doing. I kind of shared with them my vision for our business, and I thought it was all going well, but then the head of catering turned around and said, this is all great, but just understand these other businesses treat this purely as a marketing exercise and provide us product at cost. What are you prepared to do? And at that way, I was just like, I've got nowhere to go here. I mean, we're a small business. I can't amend my pricing at all. So I started to talk to them about not only what it would mean for us, but what it would mean for the thousands of parents and kids each year that we're getting on those flights and we're travelling and we're discovering healthy options. And, the head of special meals was saying there were so many complaints. Kids were climbing the walls mid-flight. Something had to be done. And I talked to them also about their philosophy of championing the spirit of Australia, and that by supporting us, they would be doing just that. And then I kind of left
Nice.
Called my husband and went, there is no way in hell we're going to win this contract. But to our surprise, 2 weeks later, the head of catering called and said, not only are we putting you on all domestic international flights, business, economy, first class, we're going to set you up with some TV interviews with Deborah Hutton. We'll feature you on in-flight TV.
Wow.
You will be interviewed by Peter Switzer for business radio and featured in QMag editorial.
Wow.
So it was an absolute game changer for us.
Wow, what a blitz.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that, look, I know in hindsight this is going to sound like a rhetorical question, but how much of an impact do you think that collaboration had?
Huge. And I think that's been our approach going forward to all the business we do.
Right.
So that particular buyer, I think he felt like he was having an impact in supporting us. He had a hand in something, and I was named a couple of years ago in one of the 100 Westpac Women of Influence, and I asked him to come along, and he actually sent his daughters along. So that's kind of shows the calibre of the person that I was dealing with.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so is that what you find is a big part of your marketing angle? It's the collaborative, it's purpose orientated, it's collaborative in nature in terms of creating a different future?
It is. It's totally purpose orientated, and it's really working in collaboration with our customers, listening to them, and working with them. And that's been our approach the whole way.
So you sound like you're a bit competitive.
Yeah, just a little.
So I'm curious to know, where does this come from? Like, in your earlier years, did you do any kind of competitive sports or?
Yeah, I played tennis, basketball. From being from a big family, my father was an AFL, VFL footballer.
Right.
He was really competitive. He would have me on the tennis court and running me around, telling me to hit the ball.
Yeah, right.
Lift my feet. So, yeah.
And so do you think that, and this is something you did all throughout childhood?
Yes.
Sports. And can you actually attribute the discipline that was required in order to succeed, not just competitively in business? Because one of the things I discovered with business is it's not just having a competitive nature, because anyone can have a competitive nature but still fail. But it's having the discipline to be able to get up and do the same shot every single day in, day out. Do you think there's some kind of a link between the discipline that you had as a child to apply yourself to a range of different sports and the discipline?
I think it's not only discipline, it is just getting up and being really focused and just going for it. But it's also resilience. I think it's also, we've had a fair amount of knocks. Things haven't gone quite the way we've expected, but it's just getting up, even on those times where you kind of think, I just can't do this anymore. It's,
And you've had days like that?
Yes.
And what do you do on days like that? First of all, what have been the significant things that have created days like that? Have there been any?
Yeah, there was a massive one. So my daughter was born, and around the time she was born, our business was imploding. So we landed the Qantas contract.
Yeah.
We were doubling revenue every year. It was putting enormous pressure on our operations, our resources, cash flow. And so, there were the stresses of that and having a child. And then we visited one of our growers in Meldrum, and while we were away, a storm hit Melbourne and our warehouse roof collapsed, taking with it 2/3 of our entire stock.
Whoa.
So we couldn't supply anyone. And
insurance?
We had insurance, yeah. But, it takes a bit to recover from that.
Yeah,
and
indeed.
when you have had a child and you're like, this is my child's future, it's kind of sitting in this warehouse. And and then we took our first holiday. It was like, just need to get away. We solved that one. We went on our first holiday in 5 years, and I had a call from my admin person to say our forklift driver has just driven out onto the road and can open a passing car. And, at that point, I was doing the 2 a.m. feed with my newborn, and I remember this distinctly, just going, how the hell are we going to survive this? And I woke up.
Tears?
There were tears.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I woke up the next morning and I'd received an email from a mum. And I met this woman. So 6 years later, she happened to be at an event I was talking at. But her email said, I discovered you on Qantas. My son can suddenly have something on a normal person's tray. Thank God you guys are here. He has severe allergies. I've been sending him to school with baby food in his lunchbox, even some fruits he has salicylate issues with, so he can't eat. He's been really badly bullied. I have gone to other food manufacturers to say, please do something, but the response has been no. And she goes, I really hope this takes off for you. And at that
was
point,
the next morning. You woke up.
That was the next morning.
Serendipity. The universe got out and said, hey.
Yeah. And
just in
I
case you're
woke up
thinking.
and I just went, this is my why. I've got to do this. I can't not do this.
And so what did you do to get yourself back?
So we started to just streamline everything. We outsourced our warehousing, to focus on what we were really good at.
Yeah, right. So it forced you to focus on what you're really good at.
Yeah, it did. So I talked to my suppliers who, again, fantastic relationship. We share with them the story of being a family business and where we want to take this to. And so I managed to get them to extend their terms from 30 to 60 and in some cases 90 days. Went to our customers and just said, this is a situation, pulled their terms back, so to 7 days. And so we started getting this cash injection. But I had a really clever friend who at the time said, Mon, we just need to get you out of the business. You really need to think about why you're doing this. So probably the single most important thing that we did was get out of the business and look at our purpose and our why. And he got us to think really big. He started saying to us, all right, where do you see this going? Let go of fear. In the next 10 years, what is it that you think this business can achieve? What can you be the best in the world at? And we did this session and we realised how aligned we were and how passionate. It all came back to Indonesia. It was all about the kids. I'm not from the food industry. How can we start to affect change? And so we set a really big goal, which was to have delivered 50 million healthier choices by 2020.
I love it.
Yeah. And then I went back into the business and I said to my team, all right, this is our goal. We need to break this down. If we're going to achieve this, what do we need to do in the next 5 years? What do we need to do in the next 3? What do we need to do in the next year? What do you in your role need to do in the next 90 days to start moving us closer to our purpose?
So it sounds to me like planning started to become an integral part. Was it something that you did beforehand?
It was, but it was a bit ad hoc. It was very reactive.
And so now you literally have a planning process.
Yeah.
And you what's your planning methodology? How often do you?
Quarterly. Yep. Involve the entire team. They all come away. Their KPIs, all of their performance is linked to the plan. And
what happened from a productivity perspective when you started to plan?
Yep.
Now this is all of these benefits happen as a result of the roof caving.
They do. Yes. Yeah.
Which is interesting, right?
Yeah, it is. So, and that's what I always look back. I go, you can't forget those moments because they're telling you something and they move you in a direction. And either way, it doesn't matter what direction that is. You're evolving and you're learning as a person. So,
have you ever been faced with any? And I know I'm going to go a little bit. What do you call it? A conspiracy theory here, because I don't know if you remember. You know Nudie? Do you remember Nudie Juice?
Yes.
I don't know if do you know the
Tim Pethick?
Yeah, so you probably know a little bit about the Nudie story when their warehouse burnt down.
No.
Okay, so I'm hoping this is an urban myth, and maybe you can just do a quick Google, Timmy. But apparently, as the story goes, similar to you guys, they started, they birthed their juice and they started to get a lot of traction. Then all of a sudden, there was there was a fire. It was an arson. Was burnt down, but then as a result of it being arson, they wouldn't pay out on the insurance. And it's, from what I understand, it almost sent Nudie completely to the wall. And there was all this speculation about, who had done it. There was a real whodunit. So have you ever experienced, because I know the food industry, because I used to work for an organisation where we did leadership and organisational development training. And one of our companies was British Tobacco.
Right, yeah.
And I remember very clearly when I was talking to them, because this is going back in the late 90s, and they were talking about how cigarettes are becoming harder and harder to market. And I said, so what is it that you guys are doing in order to to adapt? And they said, well, basically what we're taking is we're taking all of our addictive scientists. So we've got basically teams and teams of scientists whose goal is to make cigarettes more addictive. Yeah. And we're now actually transplanting it into the food manufacturing components and food. So when you consider you've got these global conglomerates that are engineering food to become addictive, so kids become dependent on it like crack. Yeah. But it's having biological, neurological, neurochemical, biochemical effects on them, which is really setting them up to fail. As healthy human beings. But we're talking billions, if not trillions, of dollars is actually held up in this industry where they're trying to take stomach share and cradle to grave. Yes. Market share from. So I've got to imagine that at some point you've come up against not just a vicious phone call, you may have come up against something a little bit more intense than that. So distribution, and we still face it. We get locked out all the time. So we had a company approach us. They have 150 franchises across Australia to provide product in a kids' meal. And it was all to go ahead. And then I had a call from the ops manager saying, we've got this contract. It's in place with one of the biggest beverage companies.
I don't know how we can work around this. You know, they put the fridges into the stores, so they under ACCC rules. And I argue they're only allowed to fill those with 80% of their product. But we managed, you know, this buyer, again, relationship was so committed to putting us in and providing a healthy choice that we negotiated a clause. We were able to get around this contract because they couldn't provide a similarly allergen-friendly, healthy product.
Yeah, right.
But all the time, Sydney Aquarium was another one where the F&B, the food and beverage manager, had said, you know, we would love to have your product in here, and without a doubt, parents want a healthy choice, but see those counters over there, they're all owned by one of the biggest snack brands, so unfortunately. But we came up with a solution. We ended up developing counter displays, and it just gives us, you know, one of our values at Whole Kids is to be the mouse that roars. And
I like that.
And so it just makes us want to fight harder and kind of expose some of this, you know, because it's not right, and it makes me angry.
Not right.
No.
Yeah.
So a toy store we went to, they had, again, soft drink company has all of the display on the counter. Can't give you that at all, despite the fact that their target market was kids under the age of 10. It's like these guys have no place in their stores. This is your space, you know, what are you doing? So it is a constant battle, but
Are you seeing a shift?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
And we're doing a lot of lobbying. So we've created this campaign or this movement called Unjunking, and it's all about advocating for a healthier world for kids, unjunking kids' lives, getting them back to creativity, to play, to imagination, but also taking on things like junk food marketing to kids. So we approached Little Ass and said to them, we just think...
off the fucking T-shirt.
Not naming names, but they have no place within. They're not promoting healthy, active lifestyles for kids. This is just wrong. And so then Little Ass South Australia came back and said, you're right, will you take it on? And we went, absolutely we will. And one of my happiest days was seeing that logo pulled down from the stadium and Whole Kids logo put up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Take that, Batman.
That's right.
Yeah. And
so we're not going away.
Yeah, good. Good. And if you need any advocate and any muscle, I'm there.
Yeah, great.
You have my support.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I don't think people really take it seriously until they do have children.
Yeah.
You know, I was very much brought up on I did little athletics on a Saturday morning and then would be taken to McDonald's afterwards. And, you know, the contradiction wasn't conscious at that point in my life. But now I have this little boy that's been brought into the world.
Yeah.
I literally now, and again, I don't think everyone has the ability to make these kind of choices, but it's still that psychology. Like I do whatever is required to give him a healthy lunchbox every day. Yeah. You know, I have these little stacked little 3 tin, and I give him, you know, fresh fruit every day, you know, whole grains every day, you know, really good quality. And I'd say 80 to 90% of what he eats is actually organic.
Yeah.
And part of it is actually, in many cases, some of your foods as well.
Thank you.
But it's not until you see the impacts of colours, sugars,
that's right,
and different preservatives on a child that you start to go, wow, I'm actually poisoning my children.
Yeah.
But some parents just don't have that conscious switch flicked.
No, I know. So it's a bit of an education process.
Yeah. So is that a big part of your business, educating parents as well as the distributors as well?
Yeah, it is.
That must make it hard because because oftentimes, you know, people rely on impulse for the purchase of their product, you know, in FMCG. But you're not just relying on impulse. You're applying on a level of consciousness, a level of awareness, health awareness, but also education as well.
Yeah.
So how much of your time are you spending educating the parents versus educating the distributors as a part of your marketing mix? I
think the market's really moving. Like we found originally, before organic went mainstream, we had a very loyal customer base.
Right.
And they're huge advocates for us. You know, mums talking to mums, recommending product. And so it's that piece, but it's also the distribution piece. So being there where those guys are, so at least there's an alternative. So parents can, if they want to make that conscious choice, they can make it.
What about school collaborations? Have you done many of those?
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've started doing more schools, and I think allergens is a huge thing within schools as well. Yeah.
Because if we can get kids eating healthy food, good quality food, they're going to be performing better, which is going to mean that, you know, their grade point averages are going to be better, which means the schools in many cases will be eligible for more funding. So it's a win-win-win scenario. Something I'm curious though, because you are competitive. How many kids have you got of your own now?
2.
You got 2 kids, boy and girl?
Yes.
What are their names?
Chloe and Sam.
Hey Chloe, hey Sam. I hope you listen. Oh, actually, maybe you shouldn't listen because K-Man says naughty words. How old are they?
So Chloe's 8 and Sam's 4.
Okay, so we'll bleep out the swear words for this one so they can have a listen. But I'm going to assume that being a parent and a successful, because you built this into an enormous empire now. You're a $6 million business now.
$6 million.
Yeah.
We're up to 42 million healthier choices.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've almost hit mission target.
Yeah, we will hit it.
And you'll smash it by the sounds of it. That's incredible.
Yeah.
But what I am curious to know, because a huge percentage of our market, especially ones we work with closely at our live events, they're parents.
Yep.
They're entrepreneurs, they're parents, and there's almost like this tangled hierarchy. I'm trying to fulfill my purpose as an entrepreneur, but I'm also trying to be a great and conscious parent as well.
Yep.
And oftentimes what happens is something gets neglected.
Yeah.
And in many cases what I observe, depending on the consciousness, the majority of the time, in most cases, it's not the business. It's often the kids. How do you balance out the equation of making sure that the kids are not just getting fed nutritionally in their mouths, but they're also getting fed nutritionally in their minds and in their environments, whilst having a great example? Because I've had a lot of parents say to me, oh, look, I'd love to spend more time with my kids, but, I'm working really hard, and I see that as a good thing because I'm setting an example for them. And I'm like, well, what a child needs more than a great example is a safe, secure environment to grow up in.
Yeah.
How do you balance that?
So I guess there's a few non-negotiables, and we have,
I like that, non-negotiables.
Yeah, my daughter started getting frustrated because I would be on our email on the phone, and I was like, this is just so wrong. It really is. We have a no devices policy, and they pick us up on it. They hold us to account.
Yeah, right.
So no devices. So at
no
times,
TV either?
Well, not during the week,
okay.
no. So
good on
we
you.
can just be as a family, and I think too, you do become incredibly busy, but there's ways that you can weave family into the business, and that's definitely one of the things that I look at and just think it is so great to have this business, to be able to bring my daughter into work, to be able to share what's going on. So we've established a partnership with Plan International where we're delivering 500,000 meals to school children in Cambodia.
Wow.
I'm taking Chloe and 6 of her little friends to Cambodia next year to visit the project and to meet the little girls over there. Because I just think... And, when you look at kids, I just think that we have this opportunity as parents to really affect the way they see the world. And, we can either choose to prepare them for the world as they see it, or we can create change and for a better world. And I just feel like too, with our children, there's so much potential. All my kids see, as would Noah, is potential at the moment. And how do we keep that alive? If we can just break down stereotypes, break down unconscious bias, all this stuff that's going on, materialism, commercialism, then that will translate into kids that are change agents, that can really... So this trip to Cambodia is going to be amazing.
That's powerful.
Because
this is Chloe's the 8-year-old?
Yeah, she's the 8-year-old, and she wants to film and narrate it.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm really curious to see these little girls, their view of the world now and when they return. And I think it's going to turn it on its head, because the project that we're going to is a self-sustaining project. So we're delivering meals so school children can stay in school.
Yeah.
Part of the reason they're not in school is because quite often they're forced to do chores, to do the cooking, housework. Their parents can't afford to send them to school. But what Plan have done is not only are they're delivering the breakfast, but they've created this school garden. And so the kids go to school, they get their education, they have the produce that they can take home to their parents. And so there's a lot we can learn from the developing world.
You should be hitting up Netflix directly, to see if they'll do a Netflix original as a documentary on this. Because this is something that, I think has scope and potential.
I think it's really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something you said before when I said, how do you balance it? You didn't say it, but you did, but you didn't use this word. It's interesting how you integrate your kids into the business. Because one of the things I've learned, in business is there is no personal life. Sorry, I feel like we're talking whole kids. I should be a little bit more PC. To me, in one of the things that I teach entrepreneurs, there is no personal life and there is no business life. It's one and the same.
It is.
And the way that I find I achieve maximum levels of balance is by combining the two together and integrating my family into the business.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a single dad and I have my son when I'm here at least 50% of the time. And I do the cooking, I do the cleaning, I do the washing, and I can get people to do that stuff for me. But and I was saying this to you before, part of me wants to set the example, but I'm now in this kind of tangled hierarchy that I want to set the example, but I also want to spend more quality time with my son. But what I find really helpful is by bringing him into the business, not only do we get to spend more time together, but he absolutely loves it. To the point where he now talks about it's his team. It's not my team. It's his team.
Yeah.
And it's his business. And we talk about him taking over. He's 4 3/4.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, like, are your kids starting to see the potential legacy in your business and starting to go, well, maybe someday I could be a part of this as well?
Totally. And when Chloe was 4, I noticed her one day. I was in a meeting and she was role playing behind me. She was at the whiteboard and she was kind of, directing and leading. And I was just like, wow. And I had this other moment where, and the reason Cambodia came about was I was like, oh man, it is hard juggling family, juggling business. You want to be with them and you want to be doing the right thing by them and be a really conscious parent. And I had this moment, I was like, oh, what am I doing? And she had a new teacher at school who'd written a letter home. And in the letter, she described her life at home and her children and what she does, what she likes. And she said to all the kids, I want you to write a letter to me describing life at home. And I'm like, I read it, as you do, sneakily. Sorry, Chloe, you had to read. Because you just want to check in and see where they're at. And she said in that letter, my mum and dad, they run this business. They are creating healthy, happy lives for kids. She stated our purpose. And she said, and at the end of the year, I will be travelling to Cambodia to meet the children and to talk about life in Australia and share that with them. And I was just like, God. Again, I cannot not do this.
Filled with joy.
Yeah.
I love this. I actually sit down with my son. Like, my son for the last 8 months has been this whole, Daddy, like, he started 8 months ago. He was sitting down, we're having dinner, and he goes, Daddy, what's a leader? And I was like, whoa, because he's in early 4s at this point. I was like, well, a leader is, and so every like, he did this for, no kidding, 6 weeks in a row. He'd sit down and say, Daddy, tell me about leadership. Tell me about a leader. How do I be a leader? And so what I did is I actually got a copy of all of our values.
Yep.
And I took them home and I started going, well, buddy, a leader, demonstrates conscious and humble leadership that inspires trust. And I started going through the values to the point now he can sit down, he can recite all 13 of our values. Yeah. And he's 4 3/4.
Kids get it.
It's incredible,
right?
They
get concepts of, they do. And I actually, so our business, we do a lot of campaigning. So we're an ambassador for getting the kids off Nauru. So we took the kids along to a protest a couple of weeks ago and we marched. And
wow,
there were so many kids there. It was incredible. And so many questions. And kids, you view the world through their eyes and they just simplify things, You can learn so much. And
you're 360, aren't you? Activist, mom, entrepreneur. That's incredible.
I think, we're a certified B Corporation and I think this gets back to why we created this business.
Explain to people what that means.
Yeah, so B Corporation is a movement that started in the States and it was these two guys that realised that business was being measured predominantly for return to shareholder value, value to shareholders, and it was all about profit despite the fact that they were using sweatshop labour. There was all this stuff happening. And they were like, what if we came up with an accreditation where you could accredit businesses, you could kind of really certify them, audit all of their processes, scale from the lowest paid worker to the highest, mix of gender, social goods, sustainability, sourcing, all of that. And you certify them as a B Corporation, which means, so they created this movement which is all about being the force for good. And it's this viewpoint that business can affect social change. So, we can't rely on the government to create the world we want and to create change. Business has to do it, and you can. Business and purpose and profit can coexist. And so that's what it's all about. And that really resonated with us.
Wow.
So we were one of the first food companies in Australia to be certified.
So you guys are legit. You're not just talking the talk. You're actually walking the walk. Soup to nuts.
Yeah. So, and again, it's getting back to my kids. It's about them. It's about, I really believe everyone has a role to play in making a difference, making a contribution, no matter how small or big that is. And if we can just do our bit to make the world a better place, and I think people often ask what drives you. And it's at the end of the day, knowing that when my kids come to me, as Noah will, and holds you to account, that you will be able to honestly look him in the eye and say, mate, I've done everything in my power to make the world a better place. Now it's over to you.
Yeah.
And that's legacy.
Don't fuck it up.
Yeah.
How do you deal with stress? Business is one of those things where you can't escape it. It's going to produce stress whether you like it or not. Some people go, well, I want to quit my job because I want a lower stress lifestyle. It's like, well, mate, start a business ain't it for you.
Yep.
How do you deal with stress?
So exercise, running. I didn't for a while, like having off the back of 2 kids, and I felt it was just really hard. I've just got to somehow just clear my head, find that space. And so I have a trainer at the moment. I'm like, I'm struggling to get there in the morning and at night. I'm tired. The only way I'm going to have to do this. Is someone tell me what to do?
Force me to do it.
So it's my time during the week where I go. And, you know, for some small businesses, it might be a bit of financial pain, but it is worth every penny. Just to go, have someone tell you what to do, clear your head. And I have a great Jim. He's amazing. He's just, you know, in terms of my mindset, the way I feel, you know, any challenges that come up, how I can deal with them. It's such an important thing to be out there and, yeah.
You're a very conscious woman, which is very impressive, especially in the way that you've executed everything you've done. Is mindfulness a part of your life at all? Do you do any meditation?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
What kind of meditation do you do and how often do you do it?
I don't do it often enough, but I do. And I also just try and be really present whenever I'm dealing. And, you know, the way I deal with my team, with staff, you know, even if there's difficult issues, just really respecting and being as present as you can with them. We're in an amazing space at the moment where every Monday afternoon there's a meditation session. There's yoga on a Thursday. So
in the business?
Yeah, in the business.
Nice.
So the team are involved in that. So it's an important one. And my kids, I bring them along. I have a great Chinese doctor who also is a meditation guru who has taught them from a very young age. And my son, he's 4, he will sit in meditation. So,
wow. That's crazy good. I love this. Oh my God, we've been so many places. We've been everywhere. Look, I got to say, Monica, this has been an incredible interview. And I'd like perhaps to bring you back in so that we can continue this conversation.
Absolutely, I'd love to.
But if there's one thing that you would like to leave our audience with, that would be, you know, either the best piece of advice you've ever received or the best piece of advice that you could give someone when it comes to overcoming adversity and actually pursuing what it is that they want, like because you are unstoppable. Like, listen to what you've done. What would be the best piece of advice that you could give someone?
I think it's getting back to finding your purpose, your vision, your why, like what it is you really want to do. Because I found in that moment where everything was really crazy within the business, when I was able to articulate that and to step up and to lead, it just mobilised our team and it gave them the freedom and the flexibility to just run with it. And so it freed me up. And I think from the outset, you know, finding that is just so important, because it also means, you know, there's times where there's competitors, you're looking over your shoulder, there's you're being pulled in all sorts of directions and you're going, oh, I could make so much money here if I did private label for Coles or whatever. But it's, you know, it's about just getting back to that, you know, because then it becomes clear and you just go there. You just go. And
you become unstoppable.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, Monica Meldrum, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks so much, Kerwin.
You are unstoppable. This is incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Monica Meldrum. And if you'd like to find out more about you, like the business, where can we go to find out more?
So wholekids.com.au.
Check it out.
Check it out.
Buy the products. And your products are available in?
So they're available in Coles. They're available in Harris Farm, independent supermarkets.
Taste Organic.
Yeah, Chemist Warehouse.
Great stuff. Fantastic. Check them out. Whole kids, not half kids. Get the whole kid. It's a much better bargain. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kerwin.
There you have it, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Unstoppable with me, your host, Kerwin Ray. And do me a favor, don't forget to drop me a review on iTunes. Would love to hear what you think. I love reading what you guys have to say. And your reviews make sure we keep creating killer content just like this. If you want to stay up to date with me and all my movements, please jump onto the website, kerwinray.com. And also check us out on social media at Kerwin Ray.